All right, Josh. Welcome to ID Fitness Podcast. I want to dive in real quick, just your story, because I think that's going to be the most interesting part. You walk in the hospital, and you're feeling numbness in the face.
Oh, yeah. So
Walk us from there.
So taking it back just a little bit, not long,
Yep.
but just a few weeks. I had a lot of pain in my neck that I assumed was related to jiu-jitsu stuff. And so I finally got to the point that it was like I couldn't sleep. So I went in to it's called New South Neuro and Spine in Flowood. And they had a walk-in clinic. And I didn't even have like a general practitioner or anything. So I was just looking and I was like, I got to go somewhere. I walked in and sat down with them, and they gave me steroid pack, decompression collar, and fixed everything. No pain. Everything was gone. They said, if anything goes numb, come back because it's a bigger problem. Then it was like 2 to 3 months later, I kind of woke up one day and my hands and feet went numb. And I was like, man, this is weird. And started like looking around. I was big on like, I ain't never go to the doctor. And if I got sick or something, I'd just run to a trust care. And so then my hands and feet, they went numb, and I was like, And I went and I was asking a couple people, and I got told, we're not real sure. It could be just crazy stuff. One place told me it could be COVID toe, because I had COVID a month or so before, and I was like, okay. And anyways, so then it started spreading throughout my body over the course of a week, and then my whole body was numb. And I was like, this is a bigger problem. And went back to New South Neuro and Spine, into the walk-in clinic, and I was just like, hey, this is I don't know what to do, but I came here before and y'all fixed it. You said if it gets numb, come back. And they were like, all right, well, you can't walk back in. We'll put you on the schedule. It was like a month away. And I was like, no, you don't understand. It was over the course of a few days, this has gone from my fingertips to now I can't feel my face. And they were like, oh, well, you got to get a specialist, like a referral, yada, yada, yada. I kind of just like went a little crazy. And I started just like slapping my face. And I was like, I can't feel this. I don't know what to do. And so then I had an awesome lady at the front desk that helped me out. The doctor I was seeing, I won't say his name. Dr. Moriarty. He was super awesome. Helped out a lot. Very talented guy. And he was sending me to his nurse prac, but they wanted me to get an MRI, come back later. But MRI, they couldn't schedule it for like a month. Then the next schedule was like 3 weeks after that. And I was just in a panic because I was like, my whole body's numb. I don't know what to do. And but the lady at the front desk, I was freaking out so much. She helped me out. She got me an MRI. I went in on a Friday afternoon. Obviously terrible timing on my part. Went in Friday afternoon. I think it was like a weekend, maybe Memorial Day weekend. I'm terrible with holiday dates. But went in. I was like, I just got to do something. And so she got me on the MRI. She said, look, come back in. Just take your CD. The MRI spot was across the street. She said, take your CD. Bring it straight here. We'll get you in. I said, bet. And kind of spent the whole weekend just kind of like trying not just doing, from wrestling, and just working out. Just your body gets like dings and weird things that you're just like, I don't know what that is, but it's not worth going to the doctor. And then it goes away. And so I had all kind of those issues. So then get my MRI. I go back in and bring my CD. I get to see Dr. Moriarty because the nurse prac is out that day or something. And I was like, yes. And you could tell he was a little agitated because I didn't go through any of the correct protocols. and he kind of immediately is like, man, I think it's anxiety. I think you're having like some stuff going on mentally that we can address. And I was like, all right, I guess it's anxiety, depression. All right. I just got to fix myself. And then he's like, all right, let me go look at the MRI. And he goes and he looks at it. And he comes in And whereas he was kind of dismissive and stuff before, it's a completely different guy, it feels like. And he's like, has anybody showed you this film? And I said, no, sir. And he said, come here. And we went, and he showed me, and he pulled up my film, and he pulled up another woman's film. He's like, this is an 87-year-old woman, and this is yours. And it was ours. You can see the spines. And he was like, this is how it's supposed to look. You see this woman? This is yours. He's like, you have a mass there. And I was like, okay. And then he goes, and you can see where it starts, and it was pushing up into my brainstem. And then the MRI stopped at the neck, so C7, I think it is. And he was like, but it went all the way down. And so he was like, it goes all the way down. We don't know how far it goes because we only MRI'd the neck. So we got to get another one set up. And that was when it was like, it's so weird because it's so like matter of fact. And then like it doesn't click on you for a little while that, oh no, that's my neck. And there's a major problem. And so then I started asking questions. I was like, so a mass, does that mean like a cancer? Like a tumor? Like what, how do you refer to this? Like, what is that? Like, what could it be? And he was like, I'm not sure. We got to get some more tests. It could be a lot of things. You could see he quickly flipped on to like doctor mode of like, something's wrong, but we're going to give you a smile. But then he said, he took a video of it and he said, I sent this video to one of my friends, Dr. Lozardo over at UMC. They didn't have the equipment. It's a very it's a specialized clinic, New South is. They do surgeries very well established, but they just didn't have the equipment to handle that. And so he said, I sent your video to Dr. Lozardo, and I think he was in a surgery when they sent it, but he said, if he doesn't, his office should reach out. If they don't contact you in a couple of days, just call me back and we'll get you situated. But, there's nothing else really we can do over here. So it was just kind of like, all right, good luck. Go pay your copay. See you later. And I was just like sitting here just kind of like this, like in the bright lights, just like, well, okay. Went, did my little copay, and then I started walking out to the car, and I was like, man, what do you do? Like, what do I do? I'm just kind of on a waiting list for somebody to call me, and I got in my car, and I was just like, I don't know what to do. I'm going to go to Smoothie King. And so I went to Smoothie King. I was like, I haven't eaten today. I need to get some food in me before I started getting the jitters. And then I just went on a little drive and was like, man, how do I tell people this? What do I tell people? I don't even know what's going on. And throughout the entire process, that was the biggest issue, was the unknowns. Like literally to the point until I woke up post-surgery, everything was, we don't know. We don't know. It could be this. It could be that. It was always a couple circumstances of, it could be this thing A that, if we get in there and see it, we can completely remove it. It could be B, where if we see it, we can take out parts of it. Could be C, where we get in there and we look at it and we can't touch any of it, and you have to deal with chemo and radiation, everything else. And it could be we just look at it, take a piece of it, sew you back up, cut you back open in a month or so, whatever the recommended time is. And so, yeah, the unknowns was the most difficult part. And so then I called my dad. I was just like, hey, what are you doing? Do you know how to read an MRI disc? Because I had the disc with me. Yeah. And I was like, man, I got this disc and a thing in my neck, and I'm just driving around in my little CRV not knowing what to do with my smoothie, Yeah. So, and so discovered there was a real problem. And then I hadn't called my wife, and she called me. It was about 30 minutes later. She called me, and she was like, hey, you hadn't told me what was going on. What happened? I was like, there's a problem. Not really sure the extent of it, but it's not good, and it's got to get addressed quickly. and we're working on it. So I get back to the house. I was like, I'm heading back home now. I got to the house, and then she's kind of in not freak out mode. She stayed pretty well kept throughout the entire process.
But she's definitely concerned.
She had like concerned, grieving moments like any of us would, but
Yeah.
she kept everything together. Kind of was the glue keeping most stuff together. And so I got to the house. She's got 1,000 questions, and I've got 1,000 answers that are the exact same. I don't know.
Yeah.
And I hadn't told, until like I got out of rehab, I didn't really tell many people. People through the gym knew, and people that kind of my dad had told knew, and that's about it. But the main problem was there was so much I didn't know going into it that I didn't want to have the same conversation over and over and over of what can you do this? What is this? And everybody wanted to help, but there wasn't that much to do.
Mm-hmm.
There was just a lot of, I don't have any answers. Plus adding to slowly getting overwhelmed by it all, that it was nice to kind of be able to just kind of cut off for a while. Started getting distracted. Oh, so about an hour later, Dr. Lizardo, he's the head neurosurgeon guy at UMC. He calls me from his personal cell phone. He's like, I was in the middle of talking to Kate, like, yeah, I don't know, babe. And she was like, 2 days. What do we got? We got to figure this out now. Who do I need to call? Yada yada. And then right there, my phone goes off. And I'm talking to him. He's like, where are you at? When can you get here? Can you come here now? And I'm like, yes, sir. And something that didn't click until I was in these waiting rooms a few times was that how lucky I was with being here, because I was in the waiting room and people are like, oh yeah, we had to drive all the way up from the coast this morning. Oh yeah, we came in from, North Mississippi, from like the edges of the state, coming in to see specific doctors and have surgeries done from long drives away. And was super blessed that we were right here. And so he said, where you at? I said, I'm in Flowood. He said, can you get here now? I zippity-doo-dah over there. And yeah, met with him, and I walked in, and I started seeing people at the hospital I knew immediately, like from the gym. And there was one lady that she was in residency at UMC, and she was one of our students, and she saw me there, and it was like they were coming back from lunch break. She saw me checking into like that neurosurgery area. It's called the Pavilion over there. And you could see she was just looking like, at first it was like, hey, and then she saw where I was, saw it was me checking in. It was just like immediate like face concerned. And I was like, oh man, I'm about to get a lot of that, I bet. And so, but then walk in, and crazy enough, I hear Josh, and it was one of our purple belts named Tony. It was his wife working in the clinic, the neurosurgery clinic. And he ended up being like the guy that helped me out in the neuro ICU. He worked in the neuro ICU, and I called him the godfather of the neuro ICU, because dude, he was running around, and he was, I don't know what I'm supposed to say, whatnot about him, but well, I don't want to get him in trouble. But he was making sure everything was done correctly at the utmost for me, and super thankful for him. Owe him a lot, because he was always in and out, make sure I had top-notch people in there taking care of me, and always checking in, doing his best. Anyway, so kept running into all these people I knew, and I didn't really plan on telling people much. And then I just kind of kept a few close friends updated along the way, and then his wife actually was extremely helpful in getting all the tests done, because had to get all these full body tests done, all kind of stuff to check everything. And anybody who's in the hospital field knows that it can take forever to schedule those things. And so it was like, all right, first openings in like 6 weeks. And it was like, well, we have to get this done now. And she was awesome. She contacted some other departments and everybody else. And Dr. Lizardo was very cool about, hey, like, it doesn't have to be through UMC. We just need this done anywhere. We need these tests. We need them now. And then got all the results back. And the biggest fear was that, maybe things had spread. We just didn't know. We didn't know how far it went down. We didn't know what the problem, like, there was so many unknowns. Then we got everything back. Super thankful that it hadn't spread anywhere.
Yeah.
And it had the potential to spread, but it hadn't. There was one worrisome part where whoever is the radiologist, did they read
Usually.
whoever reads the scans? One of the guys that read the scans, there was a typo in the scan in regards to a cyst on the kidney. And instead of saying, like, they have a goofy word for it, like abnormal.
Mm-hmm.
Instead of saying, like, no abnormalities, it was like abnormality on the kidney. And so that was a little freaky. But then when we got somebody that looked at it, it was like, oh, no, that's obviously wrong. But just little things, because now with medicine, like the updated technology on your phone, like as soon as the test comes in, you can see the results immediately before you talk to the doctor. And so, but the negative is that it's like all in not legalese, medicalese, you know?
Medical terminology.
Yeah, it's all medical terminology. And I'm just like, I have a bunch of medical family, and so I'm like asking them, but that's not the specialty and stuff. And so it's like, we're all just like, what's this mean? What's that? Oh, I hope. And we're just like, you're scrolling things. It's like, I think everything's okay, but like in regards to spreading and stuff. But basically found out that it went down into my shoulders. It was in the innermost canal of the spinal cord. And we caught it at a good time because it had started shooting off to the right side, branching outwards. And Dr. Lizardo picked up quicker immediately when we saw him. My right hand was significantly smaller than my left hand. And I'm right-handed. And so, like, the muscles, everything had already started deteriorating, atrophying.
Wow.
And so this was before surgery, while I was still using it every day. And super cool how now, like, significantly stronger in areas like my legs. My right leg had a problem too, had to do a ton of PT on it. But it's come back, and now we're just waiting on my arms to catch up. I got a little distracted, but we were at...
You were talking about now
atrophied.
Yep,
yeah.
atrophy.
So the tumor had started cutting off to the right side and branching out. And so it was why it was affecting the right side of my body more. And dummy me, I had noticed that my left grip was stronger, but there's a specific grip in jiu-jitsu I use that I got to the point that I could confidently, like, hold anybody with that grip. Not that I could do anything with it, but that I could hold somebody with it. And so there's a specific setup. I knew if I could get to that position and get this grip on their sleeve or their pant leg, I'm good. I can survive. And so I relied on it so much. In my head, I was like, oh, it's just because I use that grip all the time. That's why I'm stronger. So I'm sitting here telling the neurosurgeon, like, oh, nah, man, it's just because, I do jiu-jitsu and I got this strong hand, man. I got this grip. You don't know about jiu-jitsu, man. I wish you knew, then we could talk. Turns out he's a 4-stripe white belt, and he loves jiu-jitsu. Keeps up with all the meta of, like, the tournaments, loves the Gordon Ryan, and is always watching everything and planning out a trip to Texas to go see tournaments and stuff. And so super awesome guy. Anyways, so then we start, like, fanboying about jiu-jitsu stuff, but it was super awesome because he actually understood jiu-jitsu, actually knew, because so many like medical personnel I've seen in the past, it's like you try to explain and they think it's like a little karate thing, and they don't understand, like, some of the intensity of the combat sport aspect of it, how hands-on it can be. Anywho, when we go in the first time, it's kind of like, it's nice, it's fun. You can tell, like, they're getting you comfortable. There's a major problem. There's a lot of unknowns, but we're just we're getting comfortable. But then the second time we come in is like we have all the test results. We're prepping for surgery. That's the one where it's like that one got rough, where they got to give you, like, all right, the, like, worst case scenario kind of thing. We got to start the worst case scenario. hope for the best, but this is kind of what you need to prep for. And so that one was rough in regards to like, that was the conversation where it was like, you know, you may not come out of this, and if you do, you're probably not going to be whole. And so, and it was very much like, we don't know. There were some things that some of my buddies that worked in the units I were in were telling me, like, yeah, man, I was coming to check on you because just talked to so-and-so, and they were telling us about how, like, they don't know if you'll get your arms back, if you'll be able to walk, things like that. And so my understanding is the way the spinal cord works, everything for controlling the arms upper half is in the inside. It's called central core syndrome for when that's affected. But I didn't just have that affected. It's because it started branching out, it started having other issues. But yeah, so there was a lot of we don't know. And so I had to just get comfortable with, hey, you know, when I'm going into this surgery, might not wake up. And that was the biggest hurdle. You know, honestly, that wasn't that big of a hurdle. It was just getting comfortable with, hey, could be over, is what it is, have my time.
Yeah.
And the thing that had me paranoid the most was, what happens if I don't come out of this? How do I make sure that everything's set up for my wife, for our gym community, so that everything doesn't just fall apart? And so that was honestly my biggest concern. But for me personally, it was just like, you know, it wasn't that big of a deal, because when I go out, yeah, it was a big deal. Yeah, like, we'll get to the day of surgery and stuff. But in my head, it was like, the sooner you can get me under anesthesia, the better, because I'm going to be out and I don't have to care. And it's going to be very stressful for my loved ones and the people that care about me, because they're going to be there having to deal with like the surgery updates and everything. But for me, it's like, get this over with. The sooner I can get it done, the sooner I'm either out of here, or the sooner I can start focusing on getting better, find the next thing.
Yeah.
I skipped around a bit. I don't know where I ended up, but so had testing done.
They gave you a worst case scenario.
Yeah, so he set it up, and it was like a week and a half, 2 weeks later, he gave me a surgery date. We had everything ready, and he was like, we got to go. And I mean, it was like the next day from when we talked. It was like the next day he took it to the tumor board. I didn't realize there were so many checkoffs you have to go through, but it's probably a good thing.
Yeah.
But also found out he's the top dog, and he even brought up, was like, hey, if you want to get second what do you call them, recommendations?
Additional recommendations, just to make sure it's confirmed. Yeah.
He's like, if you want somebody else to check it out, it doesn't hurt my feelings, go ahead. And because we had mentioned my mom had cancer, and she had gone out to MD Anderson a lot, and so we knew that was the place to be. And they have my case now, but we were like, you know, we may want to do that. But then also, you know, time was kind of the essence. He was like, if you are going to do that, you have to start like now. You're already late, because they're going to want all their own tests, and you got to set it. And it was a long process. But then, luckily, had some people in the medical field asked around, name-wise recommendations, and they were like, he's the guy. Dr. Lizardo is the man. And yeah. So gave the check off, was like, yeah, Dr. Lizardo's the man. He's super cool. He's this huge dude. Is huge and like big and tall, and he's from Venezuela. Oh. And so when he wasn't around, I call him Big Homie Gustavo. That's his first name. If he watches this, I'm sorry. Because everybody always acted a little like, oh, you respect the doctors. And I get it, but anyways.
But you're a jokester. That's what you do.
Yeah. I'm always messing with people. Yeah. So then that was a rough conversation. We walk out of there, and it's like, all right, here we go. Time to just kind of hang out, get ready. And my symptoms had been getting worse and worse and worse. And the things that, like the numbness And then because it was pushing up into my brainstem, that's where I was having all of these crazy issues with like breaking out in hives and rashes, and like different parts of my body would swell crazy, and then like certain parts of the body sweating, certain parts not, and then like throwing up randomly dropping things. Couldn't really like hold on to things. Well, I could hold on to things, but I would just randomly drop it and have no idea with my hands. And I knew that was some kind of nerve issue. I'd heard of a buddy that had an issue with the nerves in the past with that. So I assumed. But the issue slowly got worse. Sleeping, just like seeing things that aren't like there, hallucinations, crazy things. Just things that you don't realize, like how much the nervous system is, how much you don't control in your own brain. And so what had happened was there was the actual mass, and then there's these things called syrinxes, I believe they're called. And they're basically like these fluid-filled cysts that they kept filling with fluid, and they kept pushing. They were pushing down my spine and up into my brainstem. And that was where it got rough, because it was like, hey, we don't see anything in the brain, but there could be cancer cells in the brain. We just don't know. And so that was another one where, because if you get, the way it was explained to me is like, if you have something gets in your brain, it's over. Mm-hmm. Like, there's not much that can be done. And at that point, it's a waiting game. And so, obviously, that was unnerving. And then there was what had happened was the fluid wasn't able to regulate, and the fluid basically just kept, my cerebral spinal fluid basically just kept backing up and swelling. And that was the issue. And that was his major concern. That's why he wanted to have surgery as fast as possible, because the spine itself was swelling outwards and downwards. It was getting bigger and bigger and bigger. And that was what was causing all my issues, all my crazy symptoms. And so, but the problem with that was that has to be regulated quickly. And he told me that if that becomes, like, if it doesn't regulate at all, your body kind of produces about a soda can's worth of cerebral spinal fluid a day. And that, if my spine just fills up with that fluid, then you start causing permanent issues you can't come back from. It was crazy things, even like my voice was changing. And I had noticed it slightly before, but I just thought, I was coaching too much, yelling too much, something like that. Yeah, all kind of crazy little symptoms. And so, yeah, so it was basically, that was the doom and gloom conversation of like, this is bad, this is real bad. And then it was like, all right. So, but what was real cool is that he's such a big deal that he constantly had like all these people, like residents and stuff around him that were like, they want to see what's going on. And so, because he's the big dog. Yeah. And I was like, I got the big dog. Big dog taking care of me. We going to be good. And so, anyways, yeah, so then we leave there, prep for whatever's going down. I let everybody at the gym know, send out a little message, just let them know, hey, not going to be here. Here's what's going on. And I didn't really tell anybody else. I knew people at the gym would know, figured it out, and had some a real good team. They took care of the gym while I was gone, and a bunch of people. It couldn't even just say like a couple specific people. It was a whole host of, like, it was literally everybody. Yeah. We had one guy that, our membership manager, he handles all the cancellations, sign-ups, talking to people interested. He kept everything flowing from a business standpoint, and then had a whole host of folks that taught the classes while I was gone.
Because just backstory, you own a jiu-jitsu gym.
Yes, yeah. Precision martial arts. Flowood, Mississippi. Yeah. We also have a location in Gluckstadt. If you happen to be in Gluckstadt looking for jiu-jitsu training, they have a new facility. Top notch. Not going to find anything like it around. So come join the team. Yeah. CJ loves jiu-jitsu.
Love it. He got the shirt today.
He does, yeah. Representing the new association. If you happen to own a jiu-jitsu gym in southern Anywhere in the nation. We have 17 gyms throughout the United States. There may be some in Brazil, but I get confused. So
such good
our new founded by Eric Raposo. If you're anywhere in the sport, you know that name, big dog. So yeah. Anywho,
you told people at the gym. You sent on them pretty much let the staff know. You told people close to you.
and then
And now you're going into surgery. What's going on?
going in. So then wake up that morning, got to be there super early. And honestly, there was two things in my head that I was extremely anxious about. One was, okay, I was terrified of the catheters.
Dude, you still make me. I had nightmares for like a couple weeks because you told me about those.
When I found out that they're not going to put it in until after they put me under, I was like, I'm good. I'm great. We'll get to when they had to hit you with those in and out catheters.
I'm glad we have to. Well,
the other one was
my stomach will be ready for that.
Oh, you know what? We're not going to get that deep into it. But I was going to say something else. But anyway. But I made my little playlist for going in. I put on my little noise canceling headphones. My wife drove me in. Super supportive family. My side of the family and all her family came out. They were there at the hospital before we were. Then we go in and that was when I started getting a little agitated because it's like 4 a.m. and then you check in, then you got to kind of wait, and then you go back and you got to fill out all like the paperwork and you got to pay a certain amount in case you can't pay later, yada yada. I started getting agitated then because I was like hyped. I was like, let's go, let's get this done. And then they stick you in the back, and that was when like my nerves started getting like, I already was like throwing up and stuff from the thing in my brain, but then like the anxiety started hitting. The anxiety was terribly bad because of that thing. I wasn't able to regulate like my nervous system at all.
Yeah.
And so when you can't control any of that, you're like a ping pong ball that is just like sped up times 10. And that was all my thoughts, everything. But then, so I'm sitting there, they're coming, they're asking all these questions. I'm just like, yeah, you're ready. And they put you in your little suit. You got to wear this little like scrub thing and apron thing. And we're just kind of laying there, and I'm just like, all right, I'm just waiting. And then they finally come and get me, and they start rolling you back. And I'm like, all right, when are you going to put me under? I was like, I don't need to see all this.
Yeah.
Like, just put me under out here. And then they like, you roll into the operating room. Something that I missed, something we skipped over was I was an extremely popular case, not only for how young I was, but because my mother had this condition called Leishmania. And it is a condition that in women, it pretty much gives you a 100% chance of developing breast cancer cells. And in men, you have like a 70% chance of developing masses in the nervous system. And so this whole time, like, I hadn't been tested for Leishmania, and it was arguable. We couldn't figure out if I had been tested when I was young. And so there was just this assumption that that's where this came from. And the problem with that is that with Leishmania, you have to, like, any carcinogens, you have to stay away from. So it was ridiculous. We were having to look at, like, you can't have anything with, like, red dye in it, I mean, you look at any processed food, like, that's red dye, And, like, certain clothing materials you can't wear. So that was about to be rough. I was like, man, the whole life's about to change. Maybe just let me go out. I don't want to deal with all this. Like, this is about to be dumb. And so everybody was operating under the assumption that that's what I had. And that's an extremely rare case. And so everybody in the hospital, there's like all these people following him around. And all these people keep asking me, like, hey, can we use you for research? Can we use your case for research? Yada, yada. And I look at them, I was like, can you put my name in it? And they were like, well, no. And I was like, well, I mean, yeah, I'm not going to tell you can't use it, but that kind of sucks. And so anyways, wanted everybody to get as much research as they could because at the time it was like, man, this thing is terrible. Like, and then it's basically kind of guaranteed that like later on in life, you're going to have some type of other cancers that come around. So it's kind of be like you got to pay attention the rest of your whole life. And then obviously I have a sister, and so that's terrifying to think with that 100% cancer cell rate for women. Anyways, long story short, fast forward to the future a ton. We both got tested and we both were negative. Oh. And so we found that out. MD Anderson took over my case. I went out there, had a few trips. They were handling everything from then on out. And then turns out they were able to fully get a full resection of the tumor, which was another confusing point because at one point we were told there's a full resection. At one point we were told there's a piece left, and that it would die off without the blood supply. We were told all these different things, and then finally just had to got it straight out of Dr. Lazzaro's mouth of exactly what it was. Anyways, such a confusing process being in a hospital. Figuring out things that need to be done. You have so many different people taking care of you, and just being realistic, looking at a percentage, not everybody can do what they're supposed to, and obviously it's unfortunate because the patients take the end of that, but I got blessed that for the most part everything went well. Had a couple hiccups, but they got remedied very fast.
Yeah.
Well, anyways, yeah, so going into surgery, and I'm goofing around with the people in there because I know they're about to put me out and I'm not about to be here just to care. And so I'm goofing around with them, and then you get in that actual surgery room and it's oh, everybody's really serious in here. Everybody's all the people that are goofing around, they're gone and they're about to do their job. And then I'm oh, their job is me. Their job is to fix me. And so then Dr. Lazzaro comes in, they hit me with the put you out stuff, and they hit me with the count backwards from 10. And that was I was scared that something would go wrong with anesthesia. And always a big fear that I think most people have this fear, your body's out, but you're still awake.
Yep.
And so obviously huge concern for that. But man, I go out and the surgery ends up being pretty long. But it was good that it was long because turns out it was good it was long because they were able to do a full resection of that entire Twizzler looking sucker that was in my spine. And so they got the whole thing out, and then they scoped out extra space where it started branching off. They scoped out extra space where if it did come back, that's where it would have come back from. And they also know that if for some reason somehow it does come back, that's where it's going to come from. And so basically on a yearly checkup to watch out for that. So they get that fully flooped out. But on the flip side of things, when they had told us to hey, go ahead, prepare to be at the hospital for a few days, bring a bag, imagine you're going on a weekend trip. So I was just oh, I'm gonna be at a house I'm gonna be there maybe a couple days and then be back home to heal up. Bro, that was not the case. As you now know, I woke up and I was there for a while. So,
how long were you there, just to give context?
So
from the start until you got discharged?
I was in the neuro ICU for 15 days, and then they transferred me over to Methodist rehab, and I was there almost a month. And so it wasn't terrible, It was less than 2 months, but
still a long time.
It was a significant amount of time. And I was supposed to be at Methodist longer, but I kind of lost my mind. And I'm real big on I have a pretty tough tolerance on, we were talking about this earlier.
Yep.
Pretty tough tolerance on dealing with things. But then when it goes, it goes. Yep. You're not gonna reason with me. I'm gone, Usually I can, also cool down pretty quick and then realize need to go need to go fix that. I shouldn't act that way. And but at the time, especially being broken up and whole body's broken up and everything else. Anyways, we'll get to that. But yeah, so I wake up from the surgery, and my other fear was, how am I gonna act when I come to? You know, like, because I hear like people acting crazy, and they let me know later on that I was letting all the nurses know that they were pretty attractive and such, and so you know, to be nice, and so
That's crazy. Isn't it so funny when
because it's you're
just not yourself.
Yeah, you aren't, and so then when I finally am like kind of conscious, understanding what's going on, I'm in the recovery room, and my eyes are open, but like it's just like this.
You can't move.
Can't move anything. Everything hurts. Can't move anything, and I'm just like, I can do like this, but that's like this right here is like, oh, it hurts so bad to like even try to make myself.
So literally, the only thing you could do was blink, swallow,
that's it,
and maybe move your head a tad.
Yeah. And I just remember waking up and being insanely thirsty. Like I was in the middle of a desert, but I couldn't drink anything. And so I was just like, hey. And so they were like, hey, you can suck on ice chips. So they had this nurse standing there, and she would just put an ice chip in my mouth. I'd be like, just sitting there like this, like, oh. And but then I felt bad because other people in that room were going crazy. And I was like, I feel bad that you're just having to stand here and feed me ice chips. Like, you're a nurse. Like, I feel bad. I'm taking away your job just to put ice chips in my mouth. And so that was like, my wife's got to be here somewhere. Can you just get her back here? And you weren't supposed to allow them, but they ended up going and getting her, letting her back there. But right about the time that like they had sent somebody for her, she was coming back in, that was right about the time that my body realized, like, okay, things are wrong. Because, you know, kind of like we talked about earlier, like, you aren't really as much you as you think.
Yeah.
Like, your body's controlling most of what's going on, including a lot of your thoughts are affected by that, and actions. And so then my body realizes there's a problem. You've been through a severe trauma, and my heart starts, like, I thought I was having a heart attack. I started getting a little nervous, and that was where she started freaking out back there. And I guess that's why I don't let people back there. It makes sense. But dude, I could see, like, out of the corner of my eye, my heart coming up, and I was like freaking out and my heart rate went boom, and they were like, "It's okay, your body's just figuring out what's going on."
Yep.
Yada yada. Meanwhile, my bro Tony, I mentioned earlier, is up in the neuro ICU. He's waiting for me. They're full. They don't have any beds available. That's why I'm still down there. And so, but they can see all your vitals up there for like who's coming. And he saw my vitals, and he didn't tell me at the time, but he told me later. He was like, dude, we were extremely worried because it was rocky there for a minute when those vitals hit that number. And that was when he grabbed his, I'm not going to say his name, but he grabbed his right-hand nurse man, the guy that he knew he was going to be the one to take care of me. He'd already gave me a heads up. He came in and was like, hey, I don't know who you got in there. Like, who you need to make a bed space now. Get him out of here. We got a VIP coming. And, dude, they did. And they made a space for me. Tony got me in there, like, boom, stat. And my heart calmed down. They got me some medicine or whatever they did. I don't really remember what they did, but somehow they fixed it. And but it got crazy there for a minute. And that hurt a lot. I had never had, like, heart pain, but, dude. And then just seeing, like a shape coming up through, like,
your chest.
I was like, what? That's not supposed to happen. And then you got all the beep, 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 beep going on. And you're like, ah. And then Kate's freaking out, and they're acting like it's not a big deal. And then Kate's like, you know, are y'all even qualified? Can we get a second opinion in here? Like, anyways.
It's funny when Kate she's gone.
Oh,
she's
dude.
bold.
Oh, yeah. So she's very similar, like, quite reserved,
yep.
But, like, if something serious is happening, it needs to happen then, it's going to happen then.
That's
and
right.
so,
Kate's his wife, by the way.
Yeah. And, but then, it was really hilarious was that the lady beside me not actually beside me, in like the stall bed
Yeah.
on the other side of the curtain, basically, she came to, like, she was mean.
Mm.
She was real mean. And she started screaming at these nurses. And I mean, first thing she comes to and she's like, I told you to do this. I don't know, like, if you, like, your husband must have just cheated on you, and that's why you're so mad because you blah, 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 blah. And dude, she went off. And I was just sitting there like, oh, my goodness, what's going on? Where am I? Why is it like this? But, yeah, so slight backstory. My mom worked in the recovery room in a hospital, and so I would be around there a lot. And so I kind of knew, like, it was always, like, real chill. Like, obviously they have crazy stuff going on, but
Yeah.
when I was around most of the time, everything was, like, chill. And so I was like, oh, I'm going to wake up. It's going to be chill. Like, just be hanging out. No, it's craziness. And then, so then they wheel me up. They get me up in the neuro ICU, and we, Tony helped us out, and we had some family that was able to kind of sneak in. I don't know if I'm supposed to say that, but he's not working in that same place anymore. So
He should be good.
Which is crazy coincidence that, like, a few months after I'm there, he transfers to a different unit, working a different job.
Wow.
So there was things that, like, I don't know if I would have made it through it if he hadn't been helping out. And so that was great. And then, but yeah, so dude, that first night, I'm laying there, like, they wheel me up there. Every bump hurts.
Oh,
everything, every minor, like, hospital beep, squeak of a wheel. Because imagine like when your spine does that jolt, like something like gets you nervous and you jolt, anything is making, like, you can't control it. Your body is going to hit that jolt. And dude, I still get that way with stuff. We were talking about that yesterday. It's like you'll hear a door or something slam on the other side of the house, or somebody, like, coughs loud, and your body instinctively just, like, hits that spine jolt, and you're like,
What's fascinating too about, like, the nervous system, like what you said too, is, like, I've had multiple clients who have nervous system issues, whether they have, paralyzed from the waist down, cerebral palsy, even a half an arm, like, they're jolty.
Yeah.
Because their nervous system is so sensitive.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's crazy. Right when he said that, I was like, that is so interesting, because I would have to warn a client that I had here named Lauren. She had cerebral palsy, and she, like, if somebody's coming to the gym, I'd tell her or face her in a position where she could see if somebody's coming to the gym, because if the door is slammed, she could fall.
Yeah, man, yeah, it's crazy. It's crazy what is affected by everything. I mumble, so I'm gonna scoot this a little closer. Yeah, so then I'm in the hospital, and I'm like, all right, I really don't want anybody around me. I think my sister and my wife were able to come back, and nobody was really supposed to be there, but again, Tony was the godfather of that unit. And then, so they're back there kind of hanging, and then 7 o'clock hits, and that's when he got off. He was like, they can stay till I leave. I got to go. And so then they got to go, and I'm like, all right, it's just me in this room, can't move, staring at the ceiling, can't do anything. And then I'm like, all right. So I get my guys there overnight, and I had seen within the jiu-jitsu community what painkillers have done to people, and I was terrified of, I've never had any problems or anything, but I just knew that I have an addictive personality in regards to, like, used to be like, you put me in front of a video game, I'm not getting up. That dopamine, it's got me there, locked in. You put a pack of Oreos in front of me, zero self-control. I'm eating the entire pack, And so, but just like stuff like that. But I was so terrified because I'd seen what it did to, like, close friends and guys within the community that just couldn't handle it. And so they came in, and I was like, hey, don't give me the morphine. Don't give me any pain meds. Like, I also was confused on, like, what was mandatory versus what was optional, because some nurses will just give you everything versus some things you have to ask for every certain amount of time. So I was just like, hey, everything's optional. Don't give it to me. And, like, homie complied. Homie should not have complied because, dude, they had, like, so it was nighttime, And so they have like these sliding glass doors in the neuro ICU, and they have like these shades too, but these curtains. So he closes the door for me, so that way that he told me, he was like, man, I closed the door for you so you wouldn't be woken up by all the noise in case something happened. And there ended up being like some kind of crazy shooting in Jackson, and there was like a bunch of people that came in with gunshot wounds, and they needed like everybody that was on staff had to go help like with these couple certain rooms. So he didn't come back for a while. And I remember seeing it was like 7, everybody's leaving. I was like, okay. And I closed my eyes and I wake up and I'm like, man, I bet it's like morning time. And it was like 7:05. And I was like, that was the first moment I knew. I was like, this is about to be rough. And so then I was like, all right, I'm just going to sit here and try to close my eyes. And then just like, imagine you're just like, I mean, literally paralyzed and just, like, hurts to kind of make your eyes tickle. You never been like so awake that like you like can't close your eyes? Like you gotta make yourself keep your eyes closed.
Yep.
And then you start to get like tired from making yourself, or like your eye muscles. Well, I can't really do that, so I'm just like having to stand here staring. And then things started to hurt, and they started to hurt more. And I was like, I'm pushing through. This is just how it's supposed to be. This is just how it's supposed to be. Dude, it hit like, I don't know. It was late, somewhere after midnight. I think it was around like 1 a.m. And I was like, okay, yeah, it was right around 1 a.m. And I was like, okay, I'm not gonna say my buddy's name. I was like, homie, because I'm looking around. I'm like, because he's like, hey, if you need anything, just holler for me. I'm like, okay. And
can you imagine just laying in your hospital bed, can't move, and you're like, hey,
dude. So
hey!
I'm here, and they give you a little panic button, and then I'm like, all right, I gotta get the panic button. And I'm like, oh shit,
you can't move your arms.
Yeah, and I'm like, oh no. So then I'm like, hey, and then nothing's happening. I'm like, hey, like, you get louder, but that hurts too.
Oh, I bet.
And so then I'm like, oh, sweet Jesus. Oh, no.
This is not good.
So it ends up being 4:30 a.m., dog.
Oh, my gosh.
4:30 a.m. He comes and checks on me. I hear that door slide open. And I mean, because, like, at that point, I'm yelling. Like, it hurts to yell, but I'm still yelling. And he opens that door. And the worst thing was, like, it was like 30 minutes or so before he came in. He had set up his nursing station and left the curtain open just enough so that he could see me, and I could see him at the nursing station out of the peripheral of my eye. And so, like, I see him there.
But you can't yell loud enough.
But I can't yell out enough because of those damn sliding door things. And so, get that. He comes in, he's like, hey, I just want, I'm like, morphine! I said, morphine! And he's like, oh, okay. And then he disappears, goes again. Dude, it felt like an eternity. And dude, he hit me with that morphine, and I was like, yeah, keep giving me this. I was like, hey, I don't want any pills, but, pills are easy to get a hold of outside of the hospital setting.
Morphine's pretty tough.
I was like, anything I got to stick in an IV, you know what, just give it to me. So he hits me with that, and then things are, they're not great, but they're tolerable. And I was like, okay. And
did that help like a lot?
Dude, I like putting water on fire.
Oh my gosh.
Fire's still burning, but like
it's not as tense.
Yeah. It's kind of like, you got a big bonfire going, but you throw the water on it and then like it's coals. That's how it was. And but the morphine doesn't last that long. So that's the other thing is like I got it on a rhythm while I was there too. It's like I know it's about, because it's like every 4 hours or so. Like I had the timetable down. And I was like, and dude, I didn't even know. So it took me getting all the way throughout every spot I was at UMC. Not hate on UMC. They did a great job. Things we can do better. But I got all the way to Methodist Rehab. And each of my UMC people had put in an order to get me a tube where I breathe into the tube and it sets off the panic thing for the people to come. Dude, I didn't get one until I got to rehab.
Oh, no.
And then they give me one. I'm like, I could have had this the whole time. I was like,
oh, man.
because I got like, even when I got to a point that I could like flop things around, I still couldn't press the button.
Yeah.
And so the button was too hard. And they even tried to give me like this little squishy thing, and I couldn't do that. So the tube was literally like this. And it was like, you just go, and but dude, once they gave me that tube though, I abused that tube. But once I realized like I can blow into this thing and just to make them talk to me, it's like, hey, Mr. Kennon, what's going on, Mr. Kennon? How y'all doing? Everything okay? Everything all right? All right. I'll see y'all a little bit. But yeah, I'm sure people got tired of me because I was always messing with people. Yeah, so I'm in the neuro ICU unit, and then they bring me my first food. People are feeding me, and honestly, the hardest thing to deal with throughout this, but the best thing for me was completely losing all independence. Like completely losing it. Like imagine anything you do in your life, you can't do it. You can't, like, you don't have the option or ability. You have to be able to, if you want something specifically done, vocalize the communication of those specific steps. And anyways, like, yeah, so everything from hygiene to everything else. And so they're feeding me, and like I just keep choking. Like I can't stop choking on food, water, whatever it is. And so because of that, dude, they hit me with the they're like, you gotta have a barium test to make sure everything's okay, yada yada. But they don't tell you that they put you on a not pallet food. I'm not saying it right. Pasteurized, dude. Yeah. And they don't tell you that it's literally the cafeteria food, but they throw it in a blender and then put it on a plate. So I'm talking like I had pasteurized meatloaf, turkey and gravy, green peas.
Like you're a little baby.
It's just like it's like baby food. And dude, that was terrible. I'll be honest. That was terrible. I never should have agreed to that little barium thing, but what they had to do is teach me how to how now it's called something, a stereognosis, where you don't have the ability, like, so if the lights go out right now, no idea. I pretty much, when my big toes can feel around, certain parts of my shins and legs can like detect things, but anything else, my face too, but anything else, I have no idea where I'm at, what I'm holding, what I'm doing. And as soon as I can't see my limbs, for the most part, like if I'm holding a cup, my left arm's better now, but because I've strengthened that wrist. But as soon, like if I'm holding a cup, as soon as I look away, you're gonna see my hand
drop
like this. And so
that's why when you do your bench press, like your single arm bench press, you look at your arm the whole time.
Yeah. Yep. Because if I start to look away at all, that thing starts caving in. Yeah. Had that, man. I'm a big coffee drinker, as you know. Super frustrating because every time I like trying to hold a cup, look away. So, but it's getting better. Everything's getting better by the week. And so I can't complain too much because it's, I'm in full Benjamin Button in this thing, going from feeling like I'm 90-year-old feeble man to slowly coming back, certain things stronger than before. But yeah, so I finally get off that pallet diet thing, and I'm not going to lie, there was at one point I had somebody, I'm not going to say who, sneaked me a Chick-fil-A sandwich. And I couldn't eat it, but it was nice to smell it and try. And so had a couple French fries here and there, but they finally get me off that thing. And so with that though, initially it's in Alzheimer's patients as well. Orally, you can't detect like what's in your mouth either. So like it's kind of like the same. Like if I put my hand in a bag, I have no idea if I'm holding anything, what I'm holding, if there's anything there. And so that's why I kind of like, you were talking about gripping the spoon.
Oh,
it's
yeah.
like I have no control on like how much
pressure.
Yeah. So.
Oh yeah, I handed him a spoon. Josh stayed tonight at the house. He drove in last night and we did a workout session. And it's crazy just from a month how the progress we've done. And then I got to give him a spoon to try the smoothie that I've been making that I stole from this homeschool girl. It's really good. And I go over there. I'm like, all right, man, here's a spoon and grab it. that boy almost took my hand off. I'm like, golly. His grip is so strong, but he can't. Like you said, you can't.
Yeah.
You can't.
There's just no throttle control.
Yeah.
So I just got to the point where like I can hold like styrofoam cups without like putting my fingers straight through them. Oh my gosh. So that's been awesome. Yeah, so I'm in the neuro ICU units for a while, and they moved me down to what's called the step down unit. Hold on, take it back a minute. I'm in the neuro ICU. They're like, hey, we think that we've got you stabilized enough to go to the floor. And I'm like, in my head, I'm like, get me to the floor. That means I'm good. That means I can go home.
Yep.
That is not the case whatsoever. You go to the floor, you basically are like going from like a quality living situation to a non-quality living situation where there's a lot less like people looking out for you, a lot less resources. The only thing that was cool was like, okay, family can stay overnight. You can have a family member stay over the night. Dude, that first night on the floor, nobody brought me my medications. We'd be ringing, take forever to get somebody to get there. They had one new lady I was like, hey, I'm going to try to go to the bathroom because, dude, it'd been like, it was like 10 days that like you don't have bowel movement, For dudes, that's a problem.
Yeah.
And so that was that was something that it was in my head constantly. It was like,
when am I going to poop?
Yeah. And I was like, man, this is going to be a situation. And because you can't, like, I still couldn't really move. And so somebody has to drag you around, then, like, get you onto a toilet and
hold you up while you're
pooping.
I
couldn't hold my body up. And so my wife's having to hold my body up. And I'm just leaning onto her. And, like, it takes so much effort. It hurts so bad just to get there. And then your body's like, yeah, we're not going to do that. And so I'm like, I can't even do it. Like, let's get back in the bed. This is too much. Oh, man. Anyways, terrible situation. Some other stuff went bad. I'm not going to talk about it. It was a terrible situation.
Yeah.
So then they come in, and the residency team, people come in, and they're like, hey, we need to get a spinal tap and to check your cerebral spinal fluid stuff. We're going to have to move you down to the step down unit temporarily. So basically you have the neuro ICU, the step down, and then the floor. Well, I'd gone from the neuro to the floor, and now it's like, all right, we're temporarily going to move you to the step down. And anyway, basically it's much better care, but not as intense as the neuro ICU. So you have like somebody there watching you basically the whole time. So I go in there and I'm like, okay, do they hit me with that spinal tap? I didn't really know what. I was nervous because they're like, all right, they're like, get in the fetal position. Because like, I'm like, okay, when are you going to put me out? She's like, oh no. And I'm like, put me in the field. And I'm like, okay. She's like, don't let go of your legs. And I'm like, you just had to move me. And like, well, you think I'm going to move somewhere? And then they start poking you, and I can't feel can't feel the majority of myself, and so, oh my God. But boy, I tell you, they get that needle in you, start feeling stuff.
Oh man,
dude. And let's say it's supposed to be an easy thing.
Oh,
it was not an easy thing. Oh. I have 21 scar marks from that poker, that needle at the bottom, and I messed up too, and I looked at it out of the corner.
Oh no!
I looked at her getting it ready, and I was like,
"Oh God!"
My heart like stopped, and I was like, "Oh no!" And my father-in-law was with me at the time, and he was in there, and dude, I didn't know it wasn't supposed to hurt. So they tell you like, "Hey, if you feel something, let me know." I didn't know you're not really supposed to feel anything. So, dude, this thing hurts. It hurts, dude, and I'm just sitting there in the fetal position like, this is what I'm supposed to deal with. This is what's supposed to happen. And so I'm just like, yeah, I felt that. So I'm trying to like deal with it as much as I can until I didn't know that like they can hit nerves and bone and all kinds of stuff. And you're not really supposed to feel it. So.
How long was this needle?
Dude. Just whoever's watching, go Google a spinal tap.
Oh, gosh. Okay, let's move on.
And they don't even have to get that much fluid out of there, but they got to get some. So she's getting like visibly upset because it's supposed to be easy. And you could tell, like, this is supposed to be an easy thing for her to do. And then finally she calls it. So I can't do it. And so she leaves. And they're like, we're just going to have to do it under imaging. And I'm like, cool, whatever. And the guy comes in. They give you, like, I don't even know what they call it. Before they give you surgery, they're like, hey, what, like, it's called something. Like, could go bad. This could go good. You got to sign off.
Just basic.
Yeah. And so then he's like, yeah. I'm like, hey, can you put me under? And he's like, I mean, yeah, we can. I was like, yeah, I don't ever want to deal with that again. Put me back under. And I try to avoid anesthesia, but not there. And so he's like, yeah, I guess we can. Okay. So then, like, a little bit goes by. I'm supposed to be having, like, my normal pain medication regimen too. But it turns out when you get moved from the floor to the step-down unit, the pharmacy puts a hold on your pain meds. You can't get it. And so they put a hold on it. So I can't get any pain medications. I'm already overdue for my other stuff. Plus, I just got my spine stabbed 21 times. And I am, like, visibly, like, breaking down. And it's getting to the point of, like, all right, mentally, this is sucking a lot more than it should. So then I'm like, okay, I just got to wait. Ended up having a super awesome nurse that she actually knew my Professor Anthony, his family from Meridian. And I was like, so we ended up, like, hitting it off real cool, super awesome. She was helping me out. And it's like an hour later, so dude, it's like a whole, like, team of people come, door bust open, and they're, like, shuffling in. And it was one of, like, that moment kept me terrified the entire time. When you hear people coming down the hallway, like a bunch of people, they're going somewhere, and they're going to do something.
Yep.
And it's to a patient, and so you're just sitting there thinking, it felt like, I don't know, like being in, like, prison, and they're coming to get you. You know, I was just like, I didn't expect them to come for me, and they came for me, and I was like, and then they all walk in, and I'm like, and they're just like, yeah, you know, she should have been able to get this, so we're not going to do it under that imaging thing. We're going to go ahead and do it again now. We got the whole neurosurgeon, like, every single one of them got their cute little jacket things that say
like,
neurosurgeon.
this is official, like the FBI's here.
Yeah. And it's like, and they're like, big dog talking it and yada yada, and I'm just like, I was like, I like, that was a point I almost said no, because I was like, that was so rough and I was so unexpected. And so then they're like, all right, let's get you ready. Dude, they didn't even have lidocaine to hit me with. So lidocaine is like this little, there's like, makes everything like to where you don't feel it as much, but it's like you kind of prick it on the outside. Yada yada. People will know what it is. But they couldn't get any lidocaine, and they're like, well, we can just do it without it. And dude, my nurse went to bat for me. She went like, because a lot of times I saw where, like, the doctors run the show, and you just kind of got to do what you're told. Dude, she was like, it really impressed me because she's a younger nurse, not new, but newer. And dude, she, like, full blown was like, no. So then the pharmacy had put a hold, and then they had so they finally, like, they were like, well, we don't want to wait on that to get done. We got stuff to do. It was like, whoa. She, like, went to bat for me because I wouldn't have known any better. I would have just been like, okay, go ahead. And so they finally get some lidocaine, and they get something else, but it wasn't as strong as it needed to be because something with the pharmacy hold, when they finally got that lifted, they were out on that floor of yada yada, and then something about just however all that systems work. They couldn't give me what I needed, and it finally got to the point where it was like, all right, I got enough. They told me they're going to do a better job. That on skinny people it's supposed to be easy. And I was like, well, I'm pretty scrawny by now. I was like 140 pounds at that point. And so I was like, all right, I told them, like, all right, let's just go ahead, get this over with. And so they fetal positioned me up. And I asked them, I'm like, hey, you're telling me, like, hold as tight as I can, yada, yada. I really can't do anything. Do you have, like, some ratchet straps you can, like, strap me with, like, tie me up with so that I don't move? Because I am terrified to move wrong here. And so then they're over there, like, holding me, helping me out. And the dude, like, is in there. And it's discomfort, but not near as what it was the first time. It takes him a few tries. There's a couple painful points. He finally is able to get the spinal tap where it's supposed to be in the spine, but can't get any spinal fluid out. Can't get any out. And then he's like, then they give up. And I'm like, oh no. And then it starts to hurt. And anyways, they're going to do something else to me. And finally, the nurse lady is like, we have to get him real pain medicine before y'all are touching him again. And so then I have a new nurse prac that comes on the floor, and she's like, are you in pain? And I'm like, yes. And they're taking care of me. And I was like, can you please just give me the normal stuff I'm supposed to have? And she's like, well, do you want she's like, do you want some Dilaudid? I was like, will that help? Dude, they gave me, dude, that stuff.
Game changer.
Bro.
You're probably starting to sense why people are so addicted to pain pills.
Dude, if that intravenous, oh yeah, 100% with pain pills.
Yeah.
But with that intravenous stuff, dude, I was a handicapped Superman. I thought I was like Superman. It was like, it was not like, they hit me. There was one point, like I was supposed to go get a scan or something, and my buddies had come to visit. Dude, they hit me with that Dilaudid. Dude, like 10 minutes later, like I jumped up, and everybody's just like, and I'm like, and so, and then I'm like, shuffle over to the bed, and like, so they're like, on the weeks later, there's videos of me like getting up and like running around the hospital, and I'm like, I want to go to Chick-fil-A, and I just get up, no shoes, no nothing, just like butt hanging out my little thing, and I'm just like shuffling. So they gotta like watch me, because like I'll just straight up in that step down unit, like there's not as many, like there's a couple, there's, so basically like each unit has like 6 patients or something that are assigned like specific nurses to watch you, and they're constantly doing these rounds, checking on you. Dude, I would be gone. Like I would just get up, and like they would give me some Dilaudid, I'd be like, yeah. They and like I would think I was Superman. I'd be running around, and now I see videos of myself, and I'm like, look like severely like inebriated, drunk, homeless person, like trying to shuffle around the hallway. And I remember like my dad would like be hold my arm, and I'd be like, get off me, I'm fine. Like let me go. I'm gonna go for a run. I'm fine. Just let me out of here. And that was the biggest game changer. When you get to rehab, there's no more intravenous pain medicine. And I was terrified. They had me on oxycodone or cotton at the hospital, and then it's like roxycodone or something. It's the same thing. So they can give you in rehab, and I was just like, I really don't want to do that, because like I just don't want to. I don't want to even mess with the potential of that. And then towards the end of rehab, bowel movements were regular because I didn't have any of the pain medicine. And then I found out from them, I was like, one of the nurses just straight up told me, was like, every time they come in, they're like, set questions of like, what's your pain level on this like 1 to 10 thing? And it's like, hey, if you tell me 5 or over, you get basically the oxycodone. And then if you tell me like 4 or below, you get Tylenol. And so I'd always be like, give me the Tylenol. I'll take a Tylenol, yada, yada. But occasionally it was like, hey, I need that.
Yep.
And what I didn't understand was that to progress through therapy, about 30 minutes before, they want you to take that intense pain medicine so that you can get through therapy. I didn't know that. So that was, dude, the hardest moment in the entirety of it, outside of, so that first time when I woke up and the heart thing, that sucked. But then really, like, if I think back on the hardest moment was when I was in rehab, pain medicine, intravenous stuff's gone, and you're there to like they get you in a rhythm. It's like they come in about like 5:30 a.m. and they're like, all right, time to get you up, time to get you dressed. You got to start working on yourself. You got to start getting back to normal.
Now, how many weeks were you in that when they started doing that?
As soon as you get there. So like you have one day that like you're like, okay, I can hang out, and then it's like, all right, nobody's feeding you anymore. All right, nobody's doing things for you, because it got to a point that I got used to it in the hospital. Where it was like, oh, people are feeding me, people are taking care of me, like I can do this. But then when it's like you got to do all this yourself, that's when it gets hard.
So from the day when you had the surgery, how many weeks was it when they started getting you a rhythm like that?
Like 2.5 weeks.
Okay.
So, but the thing is, like, you can't do it, all, and they know you can't. But it's a mental fight, because, like, if I think back on the hardest moment was when I was in rehab, pain medicine, intravenous stuff's gone, and you're there to like they get you in a rhythm. It's like they come in about like 5:30 a.m. and they're like, all right, nobody's feeding you anymore. All right, nobody's doing things for you, because it got to a point that I got used to it in the hospital. Where it was like, oh, people are feeding me, people are taking care of me, like I can do this. But then when it's like you got to do all this yourself, that's when it gets hard. So it's hard. The hardest thing was that first morning they woke me up, and my occupational therapist came in. Her name was Mia. I forget the other. Feel terrible. Forget the other girl's name. And they're getting me ready, dude. Then they like set me up for breakfast, and they're like, "All right, you have to do this yourself." And I'm sitting there, and I'm like, "What do you mean I got to do this myself? Nothing works. Like, I'm shuffling around. If you put me on pain medicine, I'll flail real lot, but like I still have, like, you see me now, even now, I'm still flicking stuff around. Like, dude, I went to grab that thing and just like getting the spoon into my hand to where I could somehow hold it, basically taping and holding my hand down, having a super huge utensil, getting that, like, the grits to my mouth, dude.
Took a workout in itself.
I literally told myself at that moment, I was like, if every day is like this, I can't do it. And the next day I woke up, it was difficult, but it was better. And then the next day, it was still difficult, but it was a little bit better. And that was when I started to realize, like, okay, we can make the progress here. But that place was a huge mental battle, because it was very depressing from the fact that, like, when you're on all these intravenous pain medicines, you think you're a Superman. And, like, imagine, like, I don't know, the crackheads running down the street holding the refrigerators. That's what you feel like. And you go from that to now you realize how feeble of a, like, fragile piece of meat sack you are, and you can't take care of yourself at all. And yeah, so, and it's just a constant, like, staff coming in pushing you, but like that was a great part of it. They were all like, that was the place to be. And I felt super lucky to be there, because I had close friends that they had family members that had applied in to get into Methodist that were denied. And so then I was like, okay, they let me in here, I got to step it up, you know? But yeah, that place was a trip. It was wild. Yeah. So they ended up, after they poked me a bunch and couldn't get the spinal fluid out, then they were like, all right, in the morning, we're just going to put you under it, like imaging, we'll put you under, yada, yada. Dude, like, later on that night, Dr. Lozardo was awesome about, like, every day he came to check on his patients.
Wow.
All of them. And at some point, you knew he was coming. And that was a huge relief, because, like, there were things that weren't done, even like in the neuro ICU, where you're like, oh, this is supposed to be like the best of the best. This is the most. No, I found out later, like, some of those nurses have, like, been working like 6 months as a nurse. Yeah. And, like, they just didn't know some stuff. Like, it's such crazy shortage. It's insane. And so, and then you get the people that, like, they know better, but they're not doing it. I didn't run into much of that. But yeah, so, like, I had to be rotated every 2 hours. And so I couldn't move my own body. But if I stayed in the same position for longer than that, then my spine wouldn't heal correctly because of the compression. And so I had, like, these big triangle-shaped, like, pillows that they would do to, like, force me to stay on this side. But that also was terrible, because, like, you know, they're coming every 2 hours at that point to, like, come turn you. And so that hurts, man. Like, it hurt at that point. It hurt for a long. I'm just now getting to the point where, like, things don't hurt, and they're still, like, my body's, like, extremely weak still. There's still, like, I'll push its limits, and I have to, like, make rest a priority, because I'm trying to, like, look and do as normal as possible, but it's still at this point is extremely difficult, from all like, energy perspective, pain perspective, everything else. Just because the nerves, you can't, like, even the pain medicine didn't help, like, a bunch of the nerves. I had the nerve medication, but, like, man, it's tough. Anyways, back to the track. What was I talking? Oh, yeah. So they turn you, and then, like, you know, Dr. Lozardo came in and was like, hey, like, why are you still in this position? Have you been turning? It's like, no, I don't even know what you're talking about. And him being like, I could see, like, him getting upset, being like, okay, you know, yada, yada. And then like he goes out in the hallway, and you just hear that angry like
Venezuela.
Latino, like Venezuelan. That accent comes out, bro.
Yeah.
He starts yelling, and I'm like, oh yeah, that's a big dog in the house. And so, yeah, he was awesome. But yeah, he kept everything in line. But it was real weird because, like, you know, you'll have doctors come in, and every shift they come in and wake you up, and you're constantly like, you're not resting in the hospital. It's not possible. Like, you're supposed to rest and recover, but like, it's not possible because every hour or so, somebody's coming in to check on you. Somebody's coming in to poke you with something. Somebody's coming in and tell you, hey, you have to do this. And so the worst is like when they come in too, they're doing all these neurological tests. So they're like, all right, try to pick up your arm. Like they're testing you like every time they come in. They're like, and at that point, like there's so much I could not do. But Dr. Lozaro specifically, he pushed me and was like, hey, you have to do this or you won't make it. Like you won't recover, you won't come back. The mental hurdle is the biggest thing. If you don't start now, basically you won't make it far.
Because he's seen it. I guarantee it.
And so, dude, they would come in and I don't even remember what the neurological tests are right now, but they make you like try to lift your arms as much as you can. Dude, just doing this.
Raising your arm up.
I'd get like right here and then they have the ones where like they push against you to like test resistance and stuff. Dude, I hated it. And what would be worse was like somebody would come checking in, and then like 10 minutes later, another doctor would come in and be like, all right, let's do this test. I'd be like, man, I just did it. And they'd be like, well, you didn't do it with me, you know? And so I have no idea where I was going with that, but that happened a lot.
You're just talking about how the doctor checked on you and then.
But for the most part, everything went well besides, well, the things that stuck out in my head, there was like, hey, this shouldn't be an issue. Dude, the catheters. We got to talk. Dude, those were my biggest fear.
Mine too.
Dude, I had that thing in for as long as possible, and then they came in.
You gave me nightmares for 2 weeks, by the way, when you were telling me the first story.
They came in, and I was like, you know, at that point, basically, when I'm in neuro-C, you're like, yeah, they're moving you around a lot, but like, you don't really get out of bed. You don't really like, you can't like do anything. You just, all you can do is lay there. And so like, there was like, you know, I had my first shower when I got to rehab, like a few days in. They were like, it's shower day. I was like, what? We get showers now? Like, I was pumped. And so the whole time, like, I knew they put that catheter in, but nobody, like, they check your catheter, but nobody's really, like, messing with you downstairs, you know?
Yeah.
And so then, so the nurse, he comes in, and I was like, at first I was like, man, it's going to be real weird if Tony's over here playing with my wiener. You know? Like, that's my boy, but we ain't like that. You know? We get close in jiu-jitsu, but
at least give me a girl. Don't give me a guy. I mean, at least
well, then that's the other one was I couldn't, well, I don't know if I should talk about this, but couldn't control erections at all as my body started
because
getting
because your body's regulating.
Dude, I'd be walking around, like, especially once I got to the point that they'd hit me with some Dilaudid and I could shuffle around the hospital.
You were so excited.
Dude, I'd be shuffling around the post, I'd be full, like, tent pole, like, shuffling around, booty hanging out with my little apron, like,
so
in the middle of an elevator. And I'm just, like, smiling, looking around, like, hey, let's go to Cubs. Hey, I'll walk all the way to Chick-fil-A. I don't care. Like, let's go. And, dude, I ain't care. I'd just be sitting there, laying in the hospital, somebody come through, and, like, you know how your body works. Like, they come for no reasons. And so, yeah.
I mean, it does it no reasons now.
Yeah, you know.
For men, like, you're just like, why are we awake right now? Why just go back to sleep?
Yeah, and so, and you know how your body regulates and checks to make sure everything's okay, and that's like why you get them in your sleep and stuff like that. And so my body's like, as stuff's like trying to fix, it's like, hey, let's check on some things. And so, but yeah, so that was the hilarious part. And so, I don't know where I was going. Oh yeah, the catheter. So I was worried too. I was like, man, what if like a super like, you know, attractive lady comes in here and grab, dude, you don't care at all. After that first one, you don't care at all. You're just like, let's get this done.
On and over with.
It don't matter who you are, how you look. You could whisper sweet nothings into my ear.
Don't matter.
It don't matter. I'm not thinking about you whatsoever. And
isn't that crazy? The pain's so bad. Like you just like
it wasn't even like painful. It was uncomfortable. And so the first one.
Is it just like feel like pressure?
So the first one guy comes in and I'm like, dude, I'm wigging out. I'm like, I'm so scared. He's like, it's time to take this thing out. But then like, I have no control over like my bladder and stuff. And so I'm like, dude, what if I just start peeing everywhere? Can we just leave that thing in? He's like, not really. You've kind of hit your max and you don't want to leave it in there longer because
you get infected.
Yeah, well, it'll get infected, but also there's some terminology for something to do with neuro and bladder. And that was Dr. Lazaro's concern was if you leave the catheter in there too long, your body's like automatic response will turn off and your bladder will no longer
function.
Yeah. So
because you just pee.
So they had a person not long before me that their bladder exploded.
Oh God.
And when he told me that, I was like, you're telling me my bladder can explode if I don't get the pee out of there? I had never even considered it.
That, yeah.
And then I was like, well, I guess, okay. And so then like he takes it out. He's like, it's really not that bad. Once you know what to expect, you know, they get the bag, they hit you with the, all right, 1, 2, hold, and like it's gone, you know. And you feel it. You definitely feel it. But then it's like, okay, that was my catheter from surgery. It'd been like 7 days. That's where I found out I pushed it too far. And I had problems. And so then what they don't tell you is like, he's like, all right, I'm going to be back. I think it was 6 hours. I'm going to be back in 6 hours. And we can, then you have to pee. And so he comes back in 6 hours later. He's like, it's time to pee. And I'm like, oh man, I don't really have to pee. He's like, no, like, you have to pee. And I was like, but I don't think I have to pee. He was like, no, you don't understand. Like, you have to pee this certain amount. And like, they got this little jug thing, like with a little measurement thing. Yeah. And you got to get right here. Otherwise,
it's going back in.
We got to put that thing back in. And my jaw just went. I was like, all right, give it to me. And so then, you know, like, it's real weird because, like, there's a bunch of people around you and, like, you're trying to pee. And then, like, yeah. And I'm like sitting there and, like, they got to put your wiener in the cup.
Oh, gosh.
It's like, you can't move. You can't control anything. And then they're like, then they cover you up and they're like, all right, is it in there? And I'm like, dude, I don't know. I can't feel anything. Like, what do you mean is it in there? Like, that's what she said. And so, sorry, inappropriate. And so I'm just sitting here and I'm like, dude, and so then it's like, I'm sitting there and I'm like, all right, B, go.
Come on. You got this.
Just go. And then it's like, all right, just go. And at first, they had like put my hand on like the little handle thing. And then they came back and like, dude, my hand was like all the way over here, like with the thing, and like I wasn't even there. So I didn't start peeing, but if I had, I would just peed everywhere. Like, and so then we learned just function that thing, set it up right between the legs, yada yada.
Did you pee?
Nope.
So you had to put it back in.
Then they're like, all right, we have to do what's called the in and out catheters.
What?
In and out catheters. So what they do is, the first one, I was like, all right, put it back in, leave it in another 7 days, whatever, I don't care. Like, no, we have to put it in, drain it, take it out, come back in 6 hours.
And keep doing that until you pee.
If you're an IOP again, put it in, drain it.
How many times?
16.
Oh my gosh.
No I counted, dude. I counted.
No way.
It went up. It wasn't as bad as I expected. It's more of a mental thing.
Okay.
But I was like, oh, you know what? Feeling's not that. You felt it. I felt it. And I was like, I guess thank goodness I'm having feeling problems because this could have been terrible.
And the crazy part is like, you hear people's stories like when they go on surgery and they have these massive surgeries. Mm-hmm. You don't hear about all this stuff that you've been saying. And so you're given, like, if you're about to have surgery, you probably don't want to listen to this podcast. It's probably you probably want to learn it on the fly. Yeah. But people who have surgery like this, like what you had, can relate.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. And so, yeah, then like, all right, got the in and out. I'm like, all right. And so it's really not that big of a deal if you have experienced personnel.
Yeah.
And you kind of know what you're getting into.
Yeah.
So first one, dude,
breeze.
It was not a breeze, but but it was tolerable, you know? Yeah. It wasn't intolerable. Mm. And I was like, okay. In my head, like, I've already been dealing with all this other stuff. I don't care. It's a few seconds. Like, in the long run, that's nothing. Boom, boom. the biggest hurdle is like in my head, I'm like, bro, you better be ready to go. You better be ready to pee when he gets back.
Because you just want to get it done over so you don't have to keep doing that.
So the second one comes, like, all right, whatever. Drains it out. But, dude, I tell you what, the relief when they drain that thing.
I bet it felt so good.
Oh, my goodness. Because I feel kind of bad for them, too, because, like, they have to measure out all the liquids, keep a record of it, and it's cool. But then I get my first lady nurse, and I'm like, oh, man, like, this shouldn't be an issue because of, like, everything, like, all these major, like, other problems that are being addressed. But at the end of the day, it kind of is, like, a thing, too, you know? And so it's like, all right, I'm about to have another woman grab my wiener and just whatever they do with that. Because I still couldn't see at that point.
You didn't know what they were doing.
Well, if I really wanted to, I could have watched, but I didn't want to watch another man grab my junk and shove that tube in there. And so,
I mean, you learned your lesson from the spinal tap.
Yeah.
You're like, I'm just not going to look. You just let me know when it's done.
And so, dude, this lady comes in. She's a little newer. And the attractive thing's out the window. You don't care. And she is attractive. But, and they had just had like a crazy shift. She's coming. She's like, hey, I got to drain this. I'm like, okay. But then she comes in, puts her gloves on, but she's chewing a sandwich, dog. Like, she's got a sandwich. Cause, like,
oh, my gosh.
You know, like, I know, like, it's intense there. You don't really get snack breaks, I guess. Right. But, like, she's like, and I'm like, and she's like, and she goes, dude, she jams that thing. And I was expecting, you know, smooth, tolerable, pressure, feels uncomfortable, but like.
Because that's your experience for the last couple.
Dude, jab. And then I'm like, and then it's just like, jab, jab, and I'm like, and like, I'm literally making noises like, and I'm like trying to grunt through it, and she's like trying to grunt through it, and she swallows him, and then she goes, all right, I'll be right back. And when she said that, I was like, that's a problem. And so she leaves. She goes gets my other homie that had left me locked in that first night. We ended up becoming cool. Like, I get it. I know what he was trying to do. He just, you know, he was newer too, but he was the dude. But it was hilarious because, like, he was a very young, like, attractive dude, and all, like, the younger ladies were all, like, over him the whole time. It was hilarious. Yeah. Like, I loved when he was my guy watching out for me because all these other people, like, he'd always be there. All these other people would always be coming around, and I could get stuff done.
He'd like, we need you. Stay handsome.
Yeah. So, but it was just hilarious. It was also entertaining because, like, I didn't even turn the TV on because, like, can't change the channels or anything. I don't want to sit there and deal with ads. Like, I had the JSU football games were going on right outside my window. It was fun to listen to those. But other than that, like, there's nothing. Like, I can't control my phone. I can't control music. It's literally just you and the sounds of a hospital, and you can't do anything. And so, anyways, he comes back, gets it. It's a breeze. It's no problem. And I was like, man, lady,
you messing up.
And so
no more sandwich lady.
Had that rough experience. And then, yeah, dudes handled my junk until I got to another unit area, and I had this lady, and I thought she was awesome. And she's like, yeah, I get to the point where, like, she's supposed to come, like, she was actually really cool because she was like, hey, she was like, I know your name, and I forget what church she was from, but it was the first time that she had ever had somebody that was, like, on the prayer request list at their church that she had, like, as a patient.
Ran into. Yeah.
And so I was like, oh, man, like, yeah, I had so many just, like, had to be, like, God things that were just, like, everybody was praying. People I didn't know, like, all these different people, like, anyways, everywhere, constantly. It was crazy. Blew my mind.
And what's crazy is it goes back to what you said earlier too. Is me and you talked about last night before we were about to go to sleep. Is when you have such a high pain tolerance and you just wait until the last minute. Like, for instance, we have another client here. She has cancer. Her name's Helen, and she kept running into issues too. And I'm just like, well, you know, maybe we just need to keep working out. Maybe do this. And then, long story short, she got, you know, cancer, and she's going through chemo now. And it's interesting as people have more pain tolerance, with that comes cons.
Yeah.
And you wait to the last minute until it's like it's too much. And
Yeah.
so like I've noticed with clients who are that type and lean that way, like you, Helen, I have another client named Katie, like they have very high pain tolerance. So I'm just like, hey, when they say rest, they need to rest.
Yeah.
If they say they don't want to do it, they don't want to do it. That means that they're at their edge. They're already pushing the envelope.
Yep.
And there's some other clients, like, you know, as coaching jiu-jitsu, it's like, you need to push.
Yeah. Yep.
It's like, no, that ain't pain. You got to go for it. But it's like, you got to know.
Yeah. Yeah. And
So where are you at now? So talk about what type of functionality do you have now? Because you went from barely be able to blink and to kind of,
yeah, I'm pretty.
you know, where are you at now?
I've gotten therapy-wise, my legs are clear from a functioning point.
So you can jog.
Yeah. I can jog, run, jiu-jitsu around. The main problem is the sensation. It's patchy in areas. It's not all the way there. Some things like don't work. Some things have weird things where like sweat a crazy amount on like your left leg, but not on your right. It's just odd stuff. But the biggest hurdle is the sensation wise. And functionality, my arms are coming back now, which is awesome. My left arm is getting better. I don't really have much any sensation with them. If like I've been letting like some rolling around with like lower belts, they get a hold of my bum arm and like yanking it around. I can tell like deep pain isn't really like pain, but it's like discomfort, like pressure. And so we're like, normally I may be caught in like an armbar that's hyperextension of the elbow where like I just think like you normally feel it start to get painful. Now like it's like if I'm not looking at it, I really now I can have a slight idea because I feel this odd like there's not feeling, but it feels odd. Like in my head, what's supposed to happen isn't really happening. So then I'm like, it's probably in a precarious position. And so there's been plenty of times that like I'm not paying attention and I can't see my arms, and then like they're locked up in like a crazy, you know, chicken wing looking position, and like I could have rolled back and broke my shoulder. So that's very I have to pay. It drains me having to constantly pay attention to all that.
And you have to thank goodness you have somebody you can roll with that knows that, so they can roll with you, but keep an eye on you.
I got a good solid team I can train with. But also like I'm kind of at the point where like because my legs are all right, I can kind of walk around and look normal. And so some people like don't really know. And so I've talked to a lot of people that they had no idea until they see me go to like try to use my hands. Yep. And so don't have a ton of fine motor skills, but my gross motor skills are doing pretty good. So.
And what's crazy though is like even like a month ago, like when you were over here, it was almost like a month and a half, but I already noticed huge progress. I'm like, oh gosh. Yeah. You know. Yeah. And so are you seeing more fine motor skills pick up on?
It comes in jumps, and so it's kind of like in jiu-jitsu. I tell people, you know, about every 3 weeks, like right about the point you realize like you're starting to plateau kind of, you feel like you're getting a little drained and you're getting a little tired of it. Usually that's when you're about to see a bump. Yeah. And mentally that's the toughest point because that's when your body and your brain's telling you like, hey, just stop. Like why are you doing that? That's uncomfortable. You don't need you can't do that. Like you should stop. And so you push through those thoughts and you get over that next hurdle, and then something that you didn't think was possible for you to do, you can do. And so that's been the coolest thing is I'm constantly trying stuff because I realize that it's just like anything else where you don't know if you can do it. It's like you have to try. Yep. And so, for instance, just like making coffee. Every day I like to make coffee with the coffee maker, and that was a major struggle because like I couldn't get water into it, I couldn't pour it, I couldn't pick it up. Like I had to make all these crazy creative solutions to barely do certain aspects of it. But then like a month or so would go by and I would realize like, oh, I can pick up like the jug thing to move it to the faucet to get water in it now, and I can keep my grip on it and like function around it. And then oh, my wrist is strong enough to actually pour the coffee into the cup. And then for a long time couldn't drink anything without a straw. And then one day is like, but like spilt so much on myself figuring it out. But then like that was the only way to finally figure out, oh, I can do that. And so using keys indoors, all kind of like crazy things that like I figured out so many ways to work around things that I can get a lot done. It's just extremely difficult, and you got to get creative.
Yep.
But so there's a lot that I can't do in like a normal functioning way, but that I can figure out how to do it. If you give me, as long as you give me extra time, I can usually figure it out. So.
What too is like that was the first time you took a long trip and drive was when you drove here.
Ooh.
And so you got a little nervous because your arm got tired.
Dude, I didn't even consider holding my arms on a steering wheel for a couple hours. How difficult that would be. I was almost like, man, I should just figure out how to use my feet, you know?
Yeah.
But I got super blessed that I have that feeling in my big toe to be able to drive.
Yeah.
They told me that's why I was able to come back walking so fast, because they were blown away with the walking speed, like to the point that I was able to walk, and because I couldn't feel much, so I had to relearn like all the proper strides. But what was really cool is that my PT, while I was there, she identified specific issues in regards to like my gait and other things, toe drags, trips, that the tumor had caused.
Wow.
Beforehand. And I always knew, and I was just always like, oh, I'm clumsy, oh, I have bad balance. Turns out no, I had a tumor there, and they fixed those problems that had kind of become rooted into my brain because I had to relearn how to walk anyways. And so now I can walk without all those problems. And it was like, wow. So all the things that I thought I was just like, oh, that's just how I am. Like, I just suck in that regards. Like, I'm just bad at that. Turns out, like, no, you just kind of had a bad part. So,
Yeah. It's crazy when you look back, like some of the weakness stuff that you were having, and then you look back, you're like, wait, that was a sign that I had it.
Yeah.
That I had the mass in my spinal cord.
So I look back and it's like so many, and they have no idea how long it was there. They have, like, they can't give me any answers, because when the leaf from anything, it was assumed I had that, like, everything, like, it answered all the questions.
Yeah.
It checked all the boxes. But then when I came back negative for that, it was like,
whoa.
The cool thing was, like, I no longer became as special, like, for research and stuff. And it was amazing because, like, for a longevity of health and life wise, I don't have to deal with as much stuff. But then at the same time, it was like, where did that come from?
Yeah.
And nobody has any ideas. They still don't. So.
No. And we talked about this before too, is nervous system fatigue is a real thing. Even when you are healthy. That's why I always tell people is rest as much as you can. And I told you one of the quotes that one of my mentors gave to me was, your nervous system is king and your gut's queen.
Yeah.
And you experience that now too. It's just like when your nervous system's tired, you can tell because it immediately affects your upper limbs.
Immediately.
Quickly.
Yeah. And so that's why my wife and I bicker sometimes about, she pushes me, man. She's like, you can do that. I seen you do this. Like, you can do better now. And like, it's great for me.
Yeah.
And, but it took a little while to realize, like, if I just woke up from like a good 10-hour sleep and it's the morning time, I just had my nerve medication and like eat my food, got my calories in me, like I can push myself hard. But by the time I have a full day of at the gym teaching, handling everything for the business, trying to train, do my workout, therapy, and I get back out like end of the day, it's just like anybody else is tired at the end of the day. But dude, like, it's hard. So it took me a while to like not feel like I hate like making myself rest. It was like you're laying down, it's like you're supposed to be doing something.
Yeah.
Like you get that feeling like, hey, you need to be doing something. You need to be doing something. Like there's daylight out, you need to be doing something.
Mm-hmm.
And so I feel, and you know, being a business owner, you know, there's always something.
Always.
Like, always.
You never get through your list of things.
Like you will literally, and it took me a while to realize that too. Like going through this process made me realize, like, oh, you know what? Like, it doesn't have to be 100%. You also don't have to put it to other people's expectations, and you can bring in other people that, you know, there may be like some like little touch of the tisms, as I call it, that like bother you, that you want handled a different way, but is that really important? You know, does that really matter? Like, is it really a big deal? We're just, so getting that thing out of there just kind of dialed me back a lot. So Um, yeah.
That is, I didn't even think about that as a business standpoint too. Is your nervous system gets fatigued just by thinking and doing.
I had to learn. So something that really I would recommend it to everybody that is running into any kind of surgery, anxiety, anything. It's goofy, but it's just this Netflix documentary called Headspace. And I'd always tried to get into meditating, but just never could figure it out. And dude, the way that documentary explains it just clicked for me. And I'll find myself like starting to get a little anxious or so and just like dial in.
Yep.
And at this point, like I can just kind of like click into that mode and turn my brain off.
Yep.
And because you like, just because you're resting your body doesn't mean like everything else is resting. You know? If you're constantly sitting there stressed and your brain's going, like,
Yep.
it's not taking a break, you know, and it needs that break. So.
And what's crazy too is it's like just because you're laying in bed does not mean you're resting. Resting is deeper than that.
Yeah.
Like it's your nutrition. Are you exercising? How's your stress levels? Like that's all included into rest.
Yeah.
And so don't just think if you get your sleep, you're resting, because your brain could be thinking 100 miles an hour at night too.
Yeah, because I think back to like looking at trying to trace causes of the thing. You know, it very well could have been way too much stress. Because I look back and I'm like, man, what was I? Why did I do that? Why did I take on so much? Like, why? You know, obviously everybody has their inefficiencies too, and it's like could have done stuff better. Like, not saying did everything great, but just even stuff that I didn't do. Like, maybe you shouldn't have done this because it was bad for you. Still doing stuff.
Yep.
Like, it's just always doing things, not letting your brain turn off. So.
What's crazy too is just like for Sunday, I have to force. I mean, it's been a while since I haven't done it, but on Sundays I just don't work. I just don't do it. Like I just pick a day where I'm just like, I'm not. This is the day. I'm not.
Yeah.
I'm not doing it. I'm not doing anything. I'm just resting. Go take my Sabbath.
Yeah. It was kind of like coming up here on trips and stuff now. Like, I'll give myself a couple things that's like, hey, you can knock this out, but like, it's not a priority. And so
like me and you yesterday, if the old us, you would have went to the coffee shop and I would have done it and we would have just worked.
Yeah.
But we were just like, no, we're just gonna chill.
Yeah. So you got to have the chill time because then you notice you come back more efficient.
Yep.
So.
Yep. To go a little bit into, I think this has been important for your backstory of cancer, and then like going through all your emotions too, and making sure that getting the right diagnosis and all these things. Talk about a quick glance of the story of because it's a long story, but about what happened to your mom and the misdiagnosis with that and all that.
So she had when she was young, she had a cancer, and she had chemotherapy, and then it came back. She was like 3, and then when she was, I think, 5, it came back, and
when she was 3 years old.
Mm-hmm.
Holy cow, I didn't know that.
And then they removed a lobe of her lung. I think it was the left lung. One of them has 3 lobes, one of them has 2. Whichever one has 3. I think the left lung. They removed a lobe of her lung, and so she would always, from that point forward, she was always going out to MD Anderson, and they were like using her tissues, blood samples, everything for research, always kind of keeping a track of it. And then my freshman year in college, it came back. Well, it didn't come back. It was a new cancer. But yeah, she had a fibrosis that ended up being like a sarcoma and a bunch of crazy, all the cancer terms are crazy, but basically it was bad. And it metastasized from her uterus to her lung, and then ended up like calcifying around her heart. That's what ended up, what she ended up dying from was like the heart just couldn't pump.
Yeah.
And so, but when she went, she was extremely at peace.
Yeah.
It was tough in those last like little bit because
how old were you when she passed?
2016.
2016.
So, yeah, like 8 years ago, like 20-ish. I don't know, 21.
You were early 20s.
29 now. Yeah, early 20s.
Yeah.
Bad with numbers. Bad dates. I just messed up my wife's birthday last month. I was like, you ready to celebrate your birthday? She was like, my birthday was yesterday. But she does this thing also where it's like a birth week. And so, you know, I just remember, the only way I remember is she's got the same birthday right around Harry Potter.
Yeah.
Harry Potter's birthday. That's what they would always goof around.
You're talking about your your bad
Yeah.
thing about what happened to the mom.
So so she ended up getting cancer, and then there was conflicting stuff on issues, and she was having problems. They were thinking it was different things, and then it turned out they found the cancer, and she went through a while. But when I first got to Ole Miss, they called me, and it was real, like, hey, like, you know, she may only have a few weeks, we don't know. And so that was rough, and cause it was already a transition, like moving out to a different place. You know how it is.
Yep.
And so it was just tough all around for the whole family, because my sister was still at home, you know, and then she's got to worry, like, is this gonna happen to me? That kind of stuff. But my mom was a trooper, dude. Like, she didn't care. She always had like 3 jobs, working at different hospitals. She took on that job teaching the NCLEX for nurses. She would work for Hearst Review, travel around all the time. She lived her life. She loved her life. And she, dude, never complained. Like, it was crazy. Like, I look back at like understanding now, like what she went through. At the time, I didn't truly understand. Now, like, understanding, just like, not only from what I went through, but just being older.
Yeah.
Like, understanding is like, I don't understand how she did it. And she had a massive community around her that, like, they don't know how she did it. And it was like, I'm meeting up with family members now too, and like, just got to meet up with my Aunt Vicky, and go through, like, talk to her about like her side. She was my mom's best friend growing up, and she's not like my blood aunt, but she's Aunt Vicky.
Yeah.
And got to hear like her side of the story, like, for the first time, on like my mom's, like, you know, just like childhood, like, events they went through, everything. And anyways, she was a trooper. And but yeah, there were some issues, and
because your dad had to go to court and everything, didn't he?
yeah, I can't really talk about it.
Yeah, I figured.
But there was some issues around it, and she ended up, like, from her diagnosis, I think she lived, it was 4 years, I think, three, maybe 3.5 years. I don't know, the date's all mush, but she lived a significant amount of time compared to how long she was given.
Yeah.
Like, how long was expected initially.
Yeah.
And so, she did do like a bunch of experimental type treatments, but she got hooked up back at MD Anderson. It basically got to the point though where this drug called the Red Devil, the andromycin.
That's exactly what Helen went through.
Dude, and that's the one that's bad. That's the only time, like, she was very particular about, like, when the kids are around and stuff, like, don't let them see me in a bad state. And that was the only time, like, she, like, I mean, you couldn't really help it. And so, just like staying with the hospital, I stayed overnight with her at the hospital one day. It was like, oh, this is bad.
Yep.
Like, this isn't what, like, this was presented as to us. Like, because, you know, I mean, obviously, you know, their parents trying to keep us, what's the right word? Not censored, but not sheltered, but
yeah,
you know, they don't want that, you know.
No.
It's kind of like, I didn't want people seeing me in the hospital. Like, I had close family members and friends that I was like, don't come up here, don't look, like, I don't want anybody seeing me like this. She was the same way with us, and she didn't want us worrying, and, you know, she was extremely selfless, worrying about everybody else but her. But anyway, she had to have like 12 lifetime doses of that, because it got to the point where, like, that was the only thing that was working.
Holy cow.
And they literally got to the point, it was like, hey, like, nothing else is going to work. You know, we can keep making progress, but, like, you're pretty much, like, your heart's going to give out down the line, because that's what my understanding is, that's what the andromycin, it, like, deteriorates your heart tissue. Anyway, so, but it was really crazy how, like, we would see her and, like, be like, oh, she's not supposed to make it a few weeks, and then be like, you know, 2 months later, and it's like, oh yeah, she went back, maybe you're not supposed to make it, but then, like, saw like the ups and downs, but it was like a general kind of like upward motion, and it's real weird because like she had been on a real like healthy run, had lost a bunch of weight, and like was doing really well with like dieting, everything else, just all around health. And dude, still playing in the band. She was in multiple like our church orchestra and like I think it was Mississippi Symphonic Band. She played trumpet, and like she still did that. Like even, and if you think how crazy that is, from she.
So she's doing that when you guys going through all that process?
Yeah, she was still doing all that. And the crazy thing was like she played band in college, and she played at MC and all this, and like that was her passion. But like if you look back from the get go, like she only had half a lung on one side.
Wow.
Like from the get go, and so she got to a point there where like she was having to drain her. There was so much fluid like encasing her lungs. She had to drain it at the house a lot of craziness. But yeah, she went through a lot, but then it was constantly ups and downs. So for us, it was just like, I got to the point where it was kind of like, I don't even, they keep saying like she's going to pass in a couple of weeks, but then like she keeps looking better,
Yeah.
And so that went on for like 3 years. And then finally it was like, hey, like it's time. Like,
yeah.
Cause we got hit with another, like had just seen her, and then she was like bebopping around on top of the world, yada, yada. And then it was just like, boom.
Boom.
And then I was talking to her on the phone. And that was when I realized, like, she was like it was almost like talking to somebody with dementia.
Mm-hmm.
Like she couldn't like keep the thoughts straight, but you could tell she was frustrated because like she knew something was like she couldn't like remember what she was supposed to be talking about or what we were doing, but like she could tell like she was supposed to. And then at the very end, like she didn't really recognize like, it's just anybody whose body's giving out.
Yep.
And so it just got to that time, and it was like, all right, it's time. Unfortunately, I didn't make it back in time for like that process, but also like I don't necessarily feel like I needed to be there. She had literally a house full of like her closest friends, family, and there was some family that were like on their way traveling in. They didn't make it to say bye. That's unfortunate. It sucks, but it's one of those things too. Like that experience gave me like anytime I say bye to somebody, it's like might not see them again. I don't know if that's a healthy mindset, but like especially like older grandparents, things like that. It's like you give them that last hug, and it's like this could be it, And so we're fragile things, and we're not meant to be here long. And anything could take us out, from a common cold to whatever, like a car crash. Like you can't control it. It's just the finiteness.
Yeah.
The finiteness of life.
What's crazy too is when you say that, I was thinking about that in junior college when I was leaving my grandparents, and I was like, they're getting older. I mean, they seem healthy now, but you just never know. Like that's when it clicked for me. And I remember I always used to shake my grandpa's hand, before he left. I gave him a big old hug, and just told him I loved him. And, he was kind of thrown off, but at the same time, he's older enough. He was just like, give me a hug back. He didn't care because he's more of a handshake guy. Yeah. And thank goodness I did, because 3 weeks later he died in a car crash. Yeah. And so it's just like, preparing, because you never know when your goodbye is going to be a goodbye.
Yeah. You don't want a regretful one.
Yeah. So. But yeah, that's crazy. I didn't realize your mom was doing all that stuff.
That was nice, dude. She was still traveling for teaching the Hearst Review stuff, and like she would pick out where she wanted to go, like go to concerts and see her friends around the country and all this kind of stuff. She lived life. She didn't care. She did what she wanted. So.
What would you say to the families that, since you've been through cancer yourself, and then your mom passing away, what kind of tips would you give either like family members in general or just sons in general that off the top of your head that you think like, hey, this would be a good mindset to have, or hey, these are some things you probably should know before things hit the fan?
Yeah. There's like, it's not gonna be pretty, but that's the first thing off the top of my head is like, what you don't really expect is like seeing somebody that like is almost like, parents almost like that superhuman figure. When you see them like feeble, that's tough. that's a major like reality factor of like, oh yeah, you know, we're not invincible.
Yeah.
You know? Being young, that's what I would say. Like, cause you know, when you're young, you feel invincible, and then you just think everything's gonna be the same, be fine, and so that's a tough realization. On the flip side of that, I would say the biggest thing is surround yourself with a community, whether that's church, a gym, a club, whoever it is, a community of healthy, positive people. The toxicity and the negativity, that will kill you quicker than anything else.
Yeah.
And so there were a lot of people I had to put quick boundaries up with, and you know, some sharply, some not like a pretty separation, but had to happen. And you know, I have zero regrets about it, and everything has been better for that.
Yeah.
And so, but those are tough things to do.
Mm-hmm.
You know, it's very tough. And then, yeah, the community is honestly the biggest one, because there's things that you don't realize that, like, there's things you don't realize people are doing for you, and they're praying every night, specifically, you know. Got people that like, I maybe trained, they came to the gym and trained a few years ago, and then like, I haven't heard from them, thought about them much, and then like, I'm getting messages like, hey, been praying for you every day. And it's like, what, dude? Like, found out all these like different churches that like, I'm on the prayer list. I'm like, this is crazy. People you don't even know. It's like, there was somebody, I was having a conversation with him, and then like, we connected the dots on who we were, and they were like, oh, you're related to so-and-so. Oh yeah, man, I've been praying for you. And it's like, what? So keep the good people close, but at the same time, don't feel bad about, it's such a delicate balance with like being alone versus being around people. Like, you need to isolate yourself to get better, because you can't always rely on people, but you can't stay isolated. And so you need the community to keep you in check. And so you need that positive community to keep you in check, to help you heal, to check in on you. But then you also need to be able to kind of go off and, you know, heal yourself.
Yep.
Yeah. I don't have a great answer, because honestly, like, it's just going to be tough.
Yep.
You know, like, nobody can give you a magic answer to make it not be tough. It's going to suck. Like, but it's just part of it, you know. That's part of us as the creatures we are. So.
Yeah, that's what I've noticed too, is the delicate balance between isolation and community. I've noticed the people who struggle the most with anxiety, depression, is their extreme isolation.
Yeah.
Manic people, like people who are literally in the crazy houses, like you ask them where the community is, they don't have any.
Yeah.
Like for instance, I had a roommate who struggled with meth, and was a meth addict recovering. And I had like over 20 roommates, so good luck trying to find out who it was.
But it's crazy how common that is.
Yes, and one of his things was, I kept telling him, like, hey man, you need a community, you need a community, you need to figure something out. And then he just gave me the reality check of like the community that he lost.
Yeah.
And he was like, I had a community, but every single one of my members of my community was toxic.
Yeah.
I didn't have any family. All the friends I knew were drug addicts or are dead. And so he's like, I had to start from zero.
Yeah.
No parents. Like, dad's full-blown narcissist, very mean, you know, mom's dead, you know, I'm just like blown away. I'm just like, holy cow. So it's like, it is harder for certain people, depending on where they are. But yeah, isolation is.
And as you get older, it gets harder too, just from our factors of life, especially if you get stuck in a situation where it's like, you wake up, go to work, go home. That's it. Like, it's hard to, you know, different hobbies, different communities, different things.
We talked about this last night, and I thought that was really good too, is talk about, because you and your wife are very proactive in your careers, and how do you guys balance that out? Because, like, you know, you guys have to be specific. Like, Because you guys are so independent.
Yeah, dude, we'll go like, we're extremely trusting, extremely like independent, but connected at the same time. So it's like, we can, like, I could be like, hey, I'm going, like, cause backstory too, like our relationship held strong through me living in other countries, working in other countries. And so we kind of got that trustworthiness and communication down to like what's necessary.
Yeah.
But also like you can have a healthy relationship that survives off of what's necessary, but that doesn't mean it's going to grow and thrive. So if you don't take the time to schedule out, hey, this is where spontaneous stuff is great, but the older and busier you get, the more you realize like you have to schedule that, because there's not going to be just like or otherwise it's going to be like anything else where it's like all your clients are like, oh yeah, I've been meaning to get that, just can't find the time. Oh yeah, I've been meaning to do that. Like, you have the time, you're just so miscombobulated that you have that whole big ping pong list of things going off in your head. It's not become a priority.
Yep.
And a lot of times it's not intentional.
Yep.
You mean for it to happen, but before you know it, it's been a few weeks before like you've gone on a date, sat down, talked, and so, you got to push through that to get extremely intentional with that time.
Yep.
Especially when, like, with our situations, like, we both can end up working from home. And so home can just turn into work very quickly. And, like, we're there, but in completely opposite rooms, doing things where, like, she may be on calls where it's like, I can't interrupt.
Yeah.
I can be in the middle of something she can't interrupt. Like, and then, when she's off, my business typically works around when people are off work. And so all those times that, oh, let's go like eat with the family. Oh, let's go like meet so-and-so. Oh, let's go do this. It's like, I got a job to do now.
Yep.
And that's a process on like, I can't always like, yeah, we got people like that help out at the gym and like, if necessary, they can cover and help. But at the same time, that's the career. I can't just be like, oh, I'm not going. Like, I got to save my made up sick days, I make I don't have a designated sick days because I own a business, but at the same time, it's like, you're going to have them, So,
yep.
Anyways, but yeah, just being intentional.
Yeah. Put it a priority.
Yeah.
All right. Now talk about future of the gym. Where are you at?
Oh, buddy. So
where are we going?
The gym we're getting just signed off for our new location. Super pumped about that. We're moving and we're going to double our mat space, our current mat space. We have a second unit that we're making an entry through in the building, and we'll have a lounge, storage area. Man, it's just leveling up.
Yeah.
We just celebrated our 4-year anniversary. Super excited. That place was great, and a lot of fond memories, but it's time for the next chapter.
Yep.
Super excited about that. And on the same token, there's a local tournament. It's called Grappler's Den that I'm going to host at the local Brandon Civic Center. It's going to be huge. I'm super excited. It's evolved from over the years, starting off with in-house tournaments and slowly figuring out how, like, the ins and outs of how it works, and then working for about 6 years for different grappling organizations as referees, ring coordinators, all the different positions, judges. So excited to take that. And the other thing is, like, all of our students in Jackson have worked for all those too. And so they're going to be the ones helping out. So it doesn't make sense. Jackson doesn't have anything like that. And excited to bring that to them.
What's the dates at the Civic Center?
October 5th.
October 5th.
So so I've been trying to get us into a bigger location. We're busting at the seams in Flowood. And dude, I just kept failing and failing. I didn't know enough about commercial real estate and venturing out to like get that done on my own. Been extremely difficult, and I've just had to learn the hard way dealing with getting into those, like, getting a place. And we've failed like 4 times I failed on getting into a new space where I was outbid, or I like wasn't like, didn't prioritize enough, like pushing the like sales representative or the property manager to like, hey, let's get this done. And then there was one that really upset me that literally had the like lease typed up, everything's ready to go, and literally like they're like, hey, yeah, we're about to send it over, and then, oh, sorry, like, you know, a friend of the owner wants to put in a restaurant there. And it's like, but all those failures, it kept like, dude, those were hard pills to swallow, because it got me to the point where I was like, all right, I'm not telling anybody anything I'm doing, going right back to like surgery mindset of like, all right, I'll tell people when I'm out of here, but I don't want to deal with it in the meantime, because like it's supposed to be done, but then because of factors outside of your control, it can't. And now you look like the guy that, you know, your word can't be trusted.
Yeah.
That's my biggest fear. So so I'm excited that we're finally progressing forward and giving kind of the community a new space that it deserves. So
now flipping back to with your progress now, and you're starting to work out, and we're building your program. Is the doctors pretty promising that you'll make a pretty much full recovery?
I want to say yes, but honestly, they still just, nobody gives me a straight answer.
Yeah.
So, I've gone from, we don't know if his arms will work, to, I will tell you that every single person I've talked to, has been like astonished.
Yeah.
By the speed in which I'm coming. And I fully like put that towards training.
Yeah.
Obviously, like, you have to be, if I was like if this happened to me and like I was like hadn't been training but for a couple of years, I would say stay off the mat completely, because I just have the awareness and the team that can, I have the personal body awareness and the team that is understanding, helpful, that, because I've run into a couple injuries that like could have been bad, but like I was experienced enough to like recognize things. And so, repeat your question. I just
it definitely helps when you have a coach. No, you answered it.
Okay.
You're exactly where doctors can't give you a really straight answer, but they're really excited about where you're at, and so you're in a good spot.
The therapists, they just like I was telling you, we'll make goals, and then it's like once we focus on those, blow them out of the park.
Yeah.
And before that, like, you know, won't make progress on it because we're not isolating those particular muscles and that kind of thing.
Yeah.
But now, like, progress is coming. And the nerves heal so slow, and it's been 11 months now, just under 11 months since surgery.
That's crazy, and how much from laying in the bed to now.
Yeah, and so people, like everybody I talk to that is involved in the neuro world, is like blown away with the spine and brain. Like they just keep telling me like how long it takes to heal, and they're like blown away with how fast the progress is going. All my therapists too, like so I can't complain. I mean, I can complain, but it doesn't help anything, you know. You just got to keep on pushing. I get frustrated sometimes, especially like my hands get caught on things and fingers get caught on things, and like I'll be walking and not realize that my whole arm's behind me, or like I'll trip on like a dog toy at the house, and then like it's the middle of the night, so I can't see anything, I can't feel anything, because like I talked about, the lights go off and I'm like, ugh.
Yeah.
And so,
or even when you were working out in here, you're doing kettlebell deadlift, and you were like, where was my hand on there? Like, because you weren't looking at it and you were just counting the reps.
Yeah. It's very, very easy to go into the mindset of like, okay, say like I trip over something, and then like go into the mindset of like, why would so-and-so leave that there? Why wouldn't they think about me and how detrimental this is for me? And like, but like, nobody cares about you, you know? Like, that's at the end of the day, like, nobody really cares. Yeah. And I mean, people care, but like,
not in a sense where it's like a priority.
Yeah.
It isn't what you think it is.
If you want to think like that, like, you're always going to think like that.
Yeah.
And it's always going to be a negative drain on your life. You're always going to be the victim, and you'll never escape that mindset. And so, you know, it's a tough thing to like, it is frustrating, but you just got to catch yourself, because I forget how it's explained, but it's kind of like one of those, your emotions are valid, but your actions aren't.
Yep.
And so you're very like, I
like that.
You're welcome to be frustrated, but you can't go yell about it. And so that's where like we all struggle with that. Even me, like, no means perfect, but as long as you try your best to fix the situation. But then at the same time, say like you lose it a little bit, whether like say you yell at, like you get mad, yell about something at somebody, say like maybe it was even completely their fault. It's just not the right way to do it. You know, if you do your best to remedy that, but they don't want that relationship anymore, you just got to move on.
Yep.
You know, and it's sad, but if you can't communicate, then you can't communicate.
Yeah, you are not kidding.
No, I don't. Yeah. So,
Oh.
yeah.
Anything else you want to talk about before we close?
Oh
I
man,
feel like you covered a lot.
talk about the big muscles you got going over there.
Oh yeah. Uh-huh. No, but
What you got going? Throw something in.
What I got going on? Oh, I'm doing biblical counseling degree. A lot of people don't know that, so I'm working on that. Took a month off dirt biking. So people that know me that I love riding dirt bikes, so I'm taking a month off because I was tired. Actually, school was kicking my butt too. That, and then not much else. In the gym, got going on here, helping people like Josh and people who have some just crazy stories, which is really cool to have a podcast with all the clients on there and talk about some of their stuff, which is cool. But and then me and Ben are working on upgrading our social media. So you probably have seen you talk about some of the stuff that you see laughing, some of the videos I'm making. So if you're not following me on TikTok, make sure you follow me. I'm doing some cool videos. Next week, I'm doing a video on things that coaches do. There'd be a super funny comedy skits of what coaches do. So super excited about that. But that's all I got going on. We'll close up. Appreciate you being on, Josh. And it was fun.
I had a good time.
All right. See how long we